Welcome to the Mobile Armored Podcast Show, the podcast that transforms into a pro-democracy demonstration. My name is Adam Moore, alongside my co-host, best friend, and snowbound, PJ McNerney. How many feet of snow you got there, or inches anyways?
We're on day 3 of this snowstorm up in the mountains. And this is the third day my kids have off from school. Not because we're not sort of equipped in the mountains to handle snow. It's more the case that it just started dumping 8 inches, then 5 inches, then another 9 inches. Like, I think they were like, people will just die if we attempt.
It's a Venom plot.
You know what? If it was a Venom plot, it'd be so competent of them. And competence is not something I've seen from Venom in a while.
No, well, let's actually talk about that, because we're at episode 27, Panda Power, in which Venom abducts endangered panda bears from China, and M.A.S.K must rescue them. And we were talking right before we began. This episode is garbage. It's the worst episode of M.A.S.K that talked about so far. And I'm going to give a lot away right now. I don't think anyone listening is going to care. Venom's goal in this episode is to get stone carvings made of their faces, on Easter Island heads, only of Miles and Rax and Vanessa and that sort of thing. Why the pandas are there is a whole other question that doesn't make any sense. I think my first question is just, what kind of writer comes up with an idea like this? Who sits down and says, I've got a great idea for a M.A.S.K episode?
I'm going to win the Writer Defense Fund award today. Okay. So this is me doing my best.
Okay.
The writers have been watching the steady decline of Miles over the last several episodes. Everything has just gotten shittier and shittier. So he's trying to track, where is the nadir of Miles' psychological makeup right now that says this is a good idea?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, his goal is to have Venom be immortalized by getting stone carvings made. Venom didn't need to plan for this. Venom could have just, I guess they're hard up for cash, and that's fine. But they probably could have sold off one of the vehicles and just paid someone to make stone carvings of their faces. But also, all of Venom is in on it. They're super psyched. They're actually later on, they have an argument over who gets to go next.
It's really interesting because it comes down to they're doing graffiti in sculpture form on Easter Island.
Yeah, that's a question I had. Is it the actual Easter Island heads that they're redoing?
I think so. I think that's the implication here.
I cannot understand a writer pitching this idea that is in full control of their faculties. It's like, this is going to be a great episode of television, not animation or anything. That this is just going to be a great episode of anything.
It's such a weird, structurally speaking, it is so weird because it's incredibly disjoint. It really is 2 episodes squished together. They're completely different locales. Yeah. It's completely different kind of that's it. It's just basically I want to be in China and Easter Island. How do I make this happen?
Yeah, this is what a space alien or an AI.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah, type in, write a plot for M.A.S.K involving statue carving and pandas and see what it comes up with. I bet it's going to be better than this. Are you going to do it while we're live here?
I'm going to open up Gemini right now. Let's just see. I'm not even going to use ChatGPT. Let's use the crappier one.
Okay.
Write an episode that involves going to China, panda bears, and Easter Island. And go. Episode title, The Panda Project. M.A.S.K is called into action when they receive intel about a mysterious organization known as the Red Panda that's planning to steal a priceless artifact from a secret museum in China. The artifact, a powerful energy crystal, is rumored to have the ability to control the Earth's tectonic plates.
That is a M.A.S.K episode.
Than what we have.
That is a M.A.S.K episode right there. I love it. I'm into it. This one, unfortunately, is not. Okay, well, let's dive into it, shall we? We open in a bamboo forest, and there's a bunch of pandas just hanging around.
I love it. They have this shot of these really happy pandas that are just chewing on bamboo. And then there's this one bamboo that just, there's this one panda that just walks by that looks like he's hyper anxious.
Well, the next cut though is to reveal a giant panda statue being carved. Right, it's covered in scaffolding, so it's like this panda's looking at the statue being carved. Got Matt standing at the top of the scaffolding, along with Andre, who is the artist that we learned Matt hired from New York. So Matt hired an artist from New York to create a huge panda statue, and he says the whole world will meet panda tomorrow in Peking. What the heck is he talking about? This is bizarre, even for Matt.
I am not sure. Is this a continuation? He knows that the Hong Kong is going to get turned over to China in about 14 years. So he's trying to lay in some groundwork with the Chinese government. So he's giving him a big gift. And I don't know. That's the problem is why do you hire an artist from New York to come in to do this? Why is that detail necessary for the episode?
Well, Scott and T-Bob are there, of course. And Scott says, Dad really is crazy about the pandas. And I mean, again, he really is. He is super excited about this giant statue.
You wonder if Scott is trying to figure out why he's so emotive about an inanimate object than his own adopted son.
Yeah, I would imagine he's absolutely trying to sort it out. I wish Dad was as crazy about me as he was about giant panda statues. Well, that night, Scott and T-Bob are lying in bed. Scott says, listen to the pandas. It's great to hear nature. But then also, I'm wondering, why is T-Bob in bed if he doesn't sleep?
We've seen this before a few times. I was wondering if it's is T-Bob kind of an Ursat bodyguard? So if some shit goes down, he's going to jump up and...
He's a bad bodyguard if he is.
He really is.
Suddenly, there's a huge wind and some banging is heard outside. And so Matt, Andre, the artist, Scott, and T-Bob, they all run outside. And all the pandas are gone, except for one little baby panda. Matt tells Scott and T-Bob to take care of this baby panda. And considering the track record, I'm not sure this is a good idea.
I think we should point out that T-Bob was programmed by Alex Sector.
Right.
And so we don't know what T-Bob's always going to default back to. Also, all we know is that the panda noises are gone. So how do they know the pandas are gone? Are they all tagged?
You're asking questions that this episode can't answer. You seek too much, my friend.
Plow the plot forward.
Well, we cut the Thunderhawk, transforming and taking to the air. We got Matt, Scott, T-Bob, and the panda all inside Thunderhawk. And Scott asks, how could all those bears disappear like that? And Matt's response is, whatever it is, I'm going to get the bear facts. And first, terrible dad joke. Second, not the time or place for a joke, as we've mentioned in the past, Matt. Third, bear facts isn't even a saying to my knowledge, is it?
It's not. I mean, I kept imagining the writer just saying to another writer, bear facts. Huh? Funny, right? It's it's funny. Kids will get it. So I have very little praise for this episode. There's a few moments where the animation's kind of cool, and this is one of them. You don't see this very much, but it's hard to do in 3D. This perspective transformation where you kind of rotate. I mean, the camera's moving. It's a cool transformation.
They put all their time and effort into that one shot.
That was it. Matt's in his suit and tie, very casually taking a look. I was kind of curious how much this indicates that T-Hawk's used for recreational purposes.
Yeah, all the time. We now cut to the big panda statue on a flatbed truck, and Andre is going to take the statue to where it's meant to be installed, which is Tiananmen Square.
Oh.
Go.
All right, let's jump over to History Corner for a second. M.A.S.K is supposed to be taking place in or around somewhere the 85 to 86. Yeah. And just as a historical note, Tiananmen means Gate of Heavenly Peace. It's where in 1949, Mao Zedong proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China. It is perhaps more famously known in the modern era, 89, where there was a massive student protest and massacre that ended in a military crackdown of information.
Those are disputed facts from the point of view of the CCP. Those are all that's all fake news.
You're right. There was a tank did not run over a student.
Never saw it.
So
I don't know what you're talking about.
So in 1985, this would have been the most logical place to do this in terms of a historical landmark. I will ask the question, in the world of M.A.S.K, is this statue actually what's going to spark the protests? Is Matt Tracker actually with this giant capitalist symbol that inspires the students and affronts the communists what's going to cause the protest?
Yeah. Why would the Communist Party allow them to put like a giant stone panda carving in Tiananmen Square? That's one of the most important spaces in modern China. And they're just going to let them put a big giant stone panda in there?
I'm sure if you asked the writer this, the writer did a lot of research and determined that this actually was the most logical thing given the tenor of the times.
Okay. Well, a Chinese official named Chen Ho shows up, and he's wearing typical Communist Party gear, a gray matching, suit. It turns out he's the national wildlife representative. And it turns out that other pandas have gone missing. In fact, now only a few pandas remain in China. Wow. Matt asks Chen Ho for permission to start looking into it, and Chen Ho says it's fine, but he won't be able to keep it from the Chinese people for long. Now, first, I believe this might be the first time Matt has ever asked for permission to do anything. Number two, I'm 100% positive that the CCP could keep whatever they want from the Chinese people.
Let's hop over to communist for a second.
Very good.
I want to talk about some of the facts on the ground. The pandas have gone missing. This white capitalist from the US has been recently involved in pandas, and this is communist China. So
yes, all true.
Why isn't the first action of the official to put Matt's ass in jail and torture him for information for where the pandas are? How much, therefore, has Matt been paying to said officials to make sure he is untouchable? And does that untouchability cover the artist from New York as well?
Yeah, I agree. I think that Matt certainly has the resources to ensure that he stays out of a Chinese penal colony. Not so much for Andre. He seems to be pretty disposable in all this, because in fact, later on in the episode, as the plot proceeds, they're not necessarily going to rescue Andre so much as they're going to rescue the pandas. So, yeah. Meanwhile, we cut to Easter Island in the most non sequitur cut in a single episode of M.A.S.K ever. So that's a new award, the non sequitur cut. And here's where all the pandas are. There's not too many pandas there, so I guess China really didn't have a lot of pandas. But anyways, Miles and Cliff are staring at the pandas, and Miles claims that soon VENOM will be immortalized. Okay. Vanessa and Sly show up in Manta, and they have even more pandas. But Miles is upset because they didn't get the sculptor. Like, that's what's really important for Miles to get. And he actually kicks Sly and sends them both out to get this sculptor. What in the world is going on here? I mean, is this the only guy who can sculpt things in the world? And that's why Matt flew him from New York. And this is why VENOM is trying to capture him. He's like, sorry, there's one sculptor left on planet Earth, and it's Andre from New York.
I was going to make this comment later on, but it's like, why does Miles need to get him right now? Like, could Miles have waited until Andre gets back? I mean, you don't even need to kidnap him. Pay him like $200.
They don't have that kind of money, PJ. They're out of money. We know they're short on cash. They're working out of a shanty in the Amazon rainforest. They don't have that kind of money.
Kidnap him and then make him do it.
Most importantly, kidnap him and bring him to Easter Island.
Yes. Let's talk about this. Location check. Easter Island is in the Pacific Ocean. Okay. It's technically a part of Chile, which is 2,000 miles away. So it is fucking remote. The nearest island that has any inhabitants is 1,300 miles away. And I was doing some checks here. The distance from Beijing to Easter Island is 10,000 miles. And if you flew at Mach 1, the speed of sound, the entire time, it would still take you 13 hours to get there, which means that Sly and Vanessa have been on their asses in Manta for more than half a day.
More importantly, all these pandas have been cooped up
Yes.
in a small crate for all that time. And if I can also just touch on the mileage factor here, they want to be immortalized. Like, what they should do is like carve Miles's face on the Statue of Liberty for all the world to see. No one sees Easter
Right.
Island, like, ever.
It's true. It's like, put it into Mount Rushmore. Like, do something daring. Like,
Now that's a great idea. Miles wants to carve his face and the rest of Venom's face on Mount Rushmore. That's a great
Superman
idea.
2 did it.
That's
Miles,
right.
just come on. You like movies. So, and again, like, assuming that they basically have 100 pandas and each one is about 215 pounds, that's like 11 tons that they're transporting
Yeah.
on the top of Manta.
Uh-huh.
And they've been flying for 13 hours. When animals get scared, Adam, what do they tend to do?
Defecate?
Yeah. I don't know about you, but 13 hours is a long time, especially after I've just eaten. And
Right.
this panda pen has not been cleaned. We're going to put a pin in that for now
gross.
until later in the episode. Because as far as we're concerned, Miles said, turn the fuck around, fly another 13 hours to get the sculptor. And it's going to be 26 hours, best case scenario, assuming no refueling, no bathroom breaks, before Miles gets to see a sculptor.
Well, now we're back at the hotel, wherever in China it is. Scott is playing around with T-Bob's wiring. It turns out Scott has hot-wired T-Bob, so he'll be an incubator for the baby panda. This does not sound like a good idea to hot-wire T-Bob to make him warmer. So could I please get a engineering corner here?
Yeah. Let's also point out that the more you know from last episode was like not to fuck around with circuits. And we're back. So just ignore it, kids. In order to generate heat from electricity, you have to send current through some kind of resistor. And so Scott, who's done a lot of modifications to T-Bob, has to have come up with some sort of rig to make the temperature the same as the mama panda. And, look, assuming he got the temperature correct, it should work. But what are the problems? Well, if he didn't choose the right resistor or the right resistance path, and again, if you want to conceptualize this, think about the inside of a toaster when you see those wires get hot. That's electricity going over which is a resistive wire, gets hot. So if you don't choose the right resistor, either the panda will freeze or they'll have baked baby panda in there. And if that's assuming his wiring's right, if his wiring's off somehow, then the panda will get electrocuted. Go back to baked baby panda.
So what you're saying is not a good idea?
It was not a good idea to leave the panda with Scott and T-Bob. Like, how do you want to explain that to the wildlife rep?
The one panda left alive in China has been given to Scott and T-Bob, who's been recently rewired to act like an incubator by Scott. Well, we cut to Tiananmen Square, where the big panda statue is ready for its unveiling. Andre tells Matt that he'd like to check the facial features one more time. He wants to put finishing touches on the panda facial features.
My response on this was like, Matt should have slapped him in the face and say, dude, not the fucking time. Like, it's done. Like, we have to it's out in the open, man. Stop messing with it.
Well, Scott and T-Bob are in a marketplace right off Tiananmen Square. I'd be curious to know if there is a sort of market right there, but PJ and I don't do any research, so we don't know. Suddenly, Manta shows up and scoops up Andre from the top of the scaffolding. By the way, in the same box that all those pandas had been in. So what is Andre lying in during this 13-hour trek to Easter Island?
I want to point out that the Pacific sun is very, very intense for 13 hours on this box. So it's whatever's in there is baked.
And will continue to bake and emit, methane. So my guess is when they get to Easter Island, what they have is a dead sculptor from methane poisoning.
What's it going to be like when, like, This guy comes tumbling out, and Miles is like, oh, yeah. And then Sly be like, he smells worse than you do, Miles.
But Andre does get scooped up by Manta. But in smashing through the scaffolding, Matt goes falling to his doom. What's gonna happen, PJ?
Scott and Gloria are going to inherit a fortune.
Yes.
I don't know.
We'll find out after these messages.
M.A.S.K will be right back, and so will Venom. Now back to M.A.S.K.
And we're back. When we left you, Matt was falling to his doom. Scott and Gloria were already spending the inheritance in their minds. Scott had his eye on a few yachts. But also, have you noticed that the act outs very often feature someone falling to their doom?
Yeah, this seems to be a really common trope that we've seen over and over again. This is, I'll say this much for it. It's unique in this case because in every other instance where we have someone falling to their doom, either a M.A.S.K or a M.A.S.K vehicle saves the day.
Yeah.
And that is actually not the case this time. So there's no lifter, there's no jackrabbit, there's no Thunderhawk. I loved Matt's face though. They have this like shot of his face coming down and he looks horrified.
He's almost it's horrified, but also somewhat shocked. Like, me? I'm falling to his doom?
So this is how Scott felt last episode.
Well, Matt doesn't die. Scott saves him by moving a cart full of tomatoes under Matt to catch his fall. It's a pretty shallow cart, and those must be some tough Chinese tomatoes. Anyways, Matt survives and he stands up and he asks, any crackers to go with this tomato soup?
The shot of this like rescue is kind of intense because like before Matt like emerges from the tomato cart, it's like red everywhere. So like, is it tomato juice or is it blood?
Yeah, no, you got Scott lying on the ground, like flailed on the ground, dead. You got T-Bob on the ground, covered in blood, dead. It seems like the baby panda has survived it, but it looks like it's something out of The Godfather.
It really does. And the way Scott is drawn, it looks like he's up on a crucifix.
Yeah, no, it's like he's being crucified. We have to we'll put this picture up on Instagram and you all can investigate it for yourselves, but it's stark.
It's a weird animation choice.
It really, really is.
What the fuck is up with Matt's joke, man?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't deal with this kind of situation well. And even Scott just kind of ignores the joke completely. But I feel like Matt's shaken at this point in time.
Yeah, no, he really is. And, if it was ever a situation like that and, it was near death, but I managed to skirt it in front of my child. My thought would actually be to go comfort my child and be like, hey, I'm okay. It's going to be fine. Like, don't worry about it. Dad's still here. Matt's just like making a joke and moving on.
He's making a joke. What do they want with that artist I hired? He's not even like checking in with Scott.
Well, Matt hops into Thunderhawk and contacts the M.A.S.K computer, and we go into our agent selection scene. Alex Sector. Well, we all know why he's chosen for this mission. Although I thought they wanted to keep the pandas alive. But, okay. He's at his pet shop with a ferret wrapped around his neck like a scarf. So, very much in character for Alex. He gets the call and runs, leaving the ferret to roam the store. So, again, case in point, this is not the man you want when the safety of animals is at stake.
I want to point out that the computer specifically says animal expertise critical. So let's grade how those skills come into use later on.
Next up is Bruce Sato. He's in a park, kind of surrounded by all these little kids, and he's throwing boomerangs, but like really angry. Like he's got this angry look on his face, just hucking boomerangs into the air, which are not coming back, by the way. And do you think he stole the toys from the kids and is like throwing them away? Like, these aren't the ones I designed. I don't want any kids to play with them.
Close. I think those are the ones he designed, and they're not playing with them right. So now he's saying, you don't get to have them. You don't get to have my genius. So again, the computer says, lifter M.A.S.K and design skills essential. Same note. Let's grade how well those skills come into use later on.
And our third member of the team is Hondo McClane. Finally, he's back.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has. And we find him grading tests, and he's sweating. Is he okay? When you're grading tests, shouldn't be sweating that much. And then he gets the call and he just leaves. And which is, typical Hondo. But the stack of tests on his desk is 3 feet tall. I mean, is he sweating because he waited all year to grade his students' work? And it's just like getting around to it now?
I think that's it, man. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, I think maybe we're just lucky he didn't like push the papers off the table.
Well, that's where I thought it was going. I thought he was going to run away and all the papers would fly everywhere. But no, somehow they remained in place.
So again, we'll kind of check in this later on. Computer says all-terrain vehicle necessary. And my thought was, when a good use of an all-terrain vehicle would have been? Last episode in the Andes.
Also, I want to point out that with Alex and Bruce, it was about their skill set. And with Hondo, it's just about the vehicle he drives.
Well, which is interesting because, like, we're going to see in a minute Hondo contributing much more.
So what is the time check from Boulder to Beijing?
There's no real direct flight, but I kind of estimated it looking at the numbers at around 15 hours.
So we're just sitting around for 15 hours.
Yeah, so it's enough time to get Vanessa and the sculptor back to Easter Island.
Yeah. Well, 15 hours later, the M.A.S.K team is gathered. No idea what anyone was doing during that time. And they're trying to figure out where VENOM would have taken the pandas. And Alex points out that they rarely survive outside of China because of the lack of food source. How does Alex know this, I wonder?
Believe me, Matt, I've tried to keep them alive for much, much longer. It rarely works out.
Well, they cross-reference the food source and discover that pandas can survive on the parsnips that grow wild on Easter Island. Okay, we'll dive into that too. But first, I just want to touch on the fact that when Alex reveals that piece of information, he turns to Matt, and he and Matt are so close to, it's like a tight close-up shot on the two of them, and they're inches from each other. And I'm thinking, are they about to kiss?
There's so much sexual tension in that look. Like, Alex is so upset he married Gloria. Like, there's something there because like Matt has like given that same intensity right back at him.
Yeah,
I want to back up for a second and say Hondo is actually the one who calls out the need to cross-reference the food source.
That's right. Yep.
So I mean, like, I was kind of like, what the fuck do I need you for, Alex? Like, Hondo is the one coming up with these brilliant ideas.
Yeah. Good job, computer. Okay, well, so they got to go to Easter Island, right? So
based on the circumstantial evidence, okay, they got to go to Easter Island.
I guess parsnips don't grow anywhere else.
Anywhere else. It's China and Easter Island. That is it.
Uh-huh. So Thunderhawk takes off from China to fly to Easter Island. How in the world is Thunderhawk capable of flying such a long distance?
I mean, if Manta can do it, I guess the same radiation source can take T-Hawk there as well. I mean, fine.
Yeah, okay. All right. Matt and Bruce are in Thunderhawk, and they're flying over Easter Island, so they got there pretty quick. They notice Andre, the artist, carving something, and it looks like the face of Miles. What?
Where are you at in your career as an international terrorist when you've come to the point of saying, I need to carve my face into Easter Island so that future generations can come here and wonder why an old white man with a mustache has his face on Easter Island?
Where are you in your career as a sculptor where you get kidnapped by terrorists to carve their faces on the heads on Easter Island?
I mean, to be fair, probably in pretty good shape. If it's like, I need Andre, no one else can do. Miles, though, he says, I was wondering when M.A.S.K would get here. So he anticipated M.A.S.K showing up. And it was like, you knew they were coming. Why don't you set up some anti-aircraft guns or something?
Thunderhawk does a low flyover, but they won't open fire because the laser blasts might hurt the pandas. Should have sent Alex.
Alex, we know, is a crack shot. When he's parachuting Rhino down, he can not hit elephants, even though he's probably trying to hit them.
Well, but here's the crux of the episode, right?
Yeah.
So the pandas have no purpose in this episode whatsoever, but just to be like not human shields, but panda shields.
Yeah, it's the weirdest fucking, like, why?
It could have been anything. They could have been anywhere doing anything. You know, it's almost as if they said, okay, you have to have an episode that takes place in China and involves pandas and carving of stones. Oh yeah, and also Easter Island. Like, all right. And even then, the AI could do better than that.
It's true. I mean, why not ransom the pandas from China for a few $1 billion or something like that? I mean, there's lots of better uses of this rather than we're going to make them
Yeah.
shields.
But anyways, so Matt gets an idea for a plan. He says we'll call it Panda Power. This episode is terrible. It's just the worst.
Isn't that the name of the episode, Adam?
I love it when they put the title of the episode in the line of dialogue. And meanwhile, the M.A.S.K jet lands, and Rhino and Firecracker roll out. I have questions about the size of Easter Island and if it can support the M.A.S.K jet landing, but that's a whole other story. Scott and T-Bob also arrive as well. What kind of father would bring his son on a dangerous mission? Oh, right. It's Matt Tracker. Worst father ever. And it turns out they also brought the baby panda so he could be reunited with his mom and dad. So we're all here.
So I did have a question about this. I was trying to think this one through. Is it more dangerous to leave Scott in a hotel in China being the son of a capitalist, like connected to the kidnapping of pandas?
Yeah.
Or bring him into Easter Island? I don't know. Maybe Matt made the right call because I think the Chinese government would hold Scott hostage.
Yeah, probably. Well, because Scott would do something stupid and, would absolutely get arrested. By the way, Scott is particularly obsessed with the baby panda, like just like his dad is. They both have a panda thing.
Do you think he has a panda thing or is he trying to connect with his dad? Also, didn't they just take a panda out of China? Are they any better than Venom at this point?
Well, they're trying to connect the baby panda back to its parents.
They just flew the baby panda 13 hours.
Well, look, Operation Panda Power goes into effect. Bruce uses Lifter to lift Thunderhawk into the air and on top of a wooden crate that was delivered from the jet. Thunderhawk takes off, followed by Rhino and Firecracker on the ground. Meanwhile, Miles is gazing at his likeness. Cliff and Vanessa get into an argument about whose face will be carved next. And I thought Venom was pathetic last episode. I don't know what to say. I give up.
How self-absorbed you have to be, knowing that M.A.S.K is nearby now. That it's like, you know what? I want to know when my face is going to be carved into a stone statue next.
Okay, if this were ancient times, and this was the only way to immortalize yourself, was to get yourself carved as like the Sphinx or something like that. Okay. But it's 1985. Like, really? You need to get your face carved in stone to immortalize yourself?
It's ridiculous.
The artist put a lot of work into that, though. He seemed like he was unhappy, but he did a swell job.
He really did, especially after flying for 13 hours in panda poop. And, presumably not getting any water. He doesn't have new clothes on. Has Stockholm syndrome, set in pretty quick?
Well, Venom sees Thunderhawk flying their way, and they make fun of the crate.
It's such a weird exchange because Vanessa's like, I wonder what the crate's for. And Miles returns with, I always thought their vehicles were a bunch of crates.
That doesn't even make sense. What are you talking about? Was this written in another language and then translated to English? Or it was like written in English, translated to another language, and then translated back to English by someone who doesn't truly understand? Like, I don't know how to explain this episode away other than that. Well, Thunderhawk drops the crate. Bruce calls it panda candy. And when it crashes down, it reveals tons of bamboo shoots. And this draws the pandas away from Venom. So that's the whole Operation Panda Power was to fill a crate full of bamboo shoots, drop them away from Venom to lure the pandas away.
You know what else draws pandas away?
What?
Lasers. I want to ask you a physics question, Adam.
Sure.
What's bigger, a photon from a laser or a crate?
What's larger? I believe a crate is larger than a photon.
Okay. So how precisely are they dropping that crate? If they were concerned about lasers...
I had the same question. Like, they're going to drop those on the pandas.
Is there like a shot we didn't see of one panda dead?
Well, and I mean, we know that M.A.S.K never actually attacks Venom in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
So they're drawing all the pandas away just to not take very good shots at Venom. So that's the whole purpose of Panda Power. Anyways, Venom takes off, and we enter the end of episode M.A.S.K Venom battle. Firecracker and Jackhammer go head to head. Firecracker uses its hypno headlights and Jackhammer crashes into an Easter Island statue, which crushes it. So we have a Ragdoll Award nominee there. Meanwhile, Scott and T-Bob are in motorcycle mode, racing towards the battle.
Yeah, randomly driving around Easter Island seems like a great idea.
Yeah, for sure. Rhino takes on Manta using the battering ram. It sends Manta into a roll, but somehow Vanessa survives. So another Ragdoll Award nominee.
Did you wonder, like, why is Manta not transformed? Because it's so much more effective in flight mode. I mean,
Manta crashes a lot. She survives. Manta crashes quite a bit.
Yeah.
Then we have a good old-fashioned Thunderhawk versus Switchblade battle. Switchblade transforms into jet mode, fires some missiles. Thunderhawk shoots him out of the sky. Piranha gets a flat tire, which sends Rax flying into the bamboo shoots, which is another Ragdoll Award nominee. So we got some Ragdoll Awards all over the place here.
All over the place.
Hilariously, Sly gets chased by the pandas. And actually, it's not hilarious at all. It's more like a Benny Hill episode. Like, all it's missing is yakety sax. Miles transforms into helicopter mode. He drops a ladder for his team to climb on. And Vanessa goes up and Cliff goes up, and Rax is the last. And the pandas, who are notoriously nonviolent, by the way, they claw at his pants, revealing his boxer shorts that have a heart on them. And now this truly is like a Benny Hill episode.
Can you imagine, like, the note you had to give to the animation team to put that in?
I mean, but also, can you imagine being the writer of Rotex and then looking at this episode and saying, wait, you want a panda to claw his pants and reveal his boxer shorts? I don't think we're writing the same show.
What? It's like the bare facts. Huh?
Awful. Just awful.
And it just keeps getting worse is the problem. It's like they somehow keep making it shittier.
Yeah. Bruce says Venom's escaping, and Matt says, we have to let them go, Bruce. We have to take care of the pandas. Well, your whole team is there, Matt. Someone could have gone after Venom because it's a helicopter leaving Easter Island. Where the heck is he going to go?
Okay, so I want to recheck everything I said earlier. It's 2,000 miles away from the coastline of Chile.
Right.
And the nearest human settlement is 1,200 miles away. So at Mach 1, this means Vanessa, Sly, and Cliff have to hold on for 2 hours.
At Mach 1.
At Mach 1. So, I mean, like they have to be, like, holding on for dear life for 2 hours, right. Okay? Any slower, like, let's say it's like half the speed of sound, which is still fucking fast. They're going to have to hold on for 4 hours. Matt, you could take out 3 agents in one fell swoop by just shooting the ladder.
You could fire one missile and take all 4 of them out.
Yeah. Blaster could take them out.
Well, Scott and T-Bob reunite the baby panda with its parents, and the pandas lick T-Bob as a thank you. And Scott says, I think you've been adopted, T-Bob. And everyone starts laughing. Ugh. Again.
Yeah. Let's do a little grading of the agent selection from above.
Okay. So Hondo was being called in for all-terrain capabilities.
Yes, and it was used for off-roading at Easter Island. So check.
Alex was used for his, animal skills?
Yes, and as far as we can tell, because he wasn't the one to come up with the cross-referencing of the food, his skills were basically used to identify the fact those were pandas.
Okay. And Bruce was brought along for his design skills?
Yep. So Lifter was used, so check. But his design skills were used to design a wooden box.
Wow.
Go team!
Computer did another great job there. Well, Scott gives the pandas some bamboo and then shoves T-Bob to the ground. And everyone laughs again, which gives us a Roy Batty moment. But why in the world does Scott just shove him to the ground? For no reason.
It's just cruel. I mean, there's no reason for it whatsoever, other than basically to turn him to evil. But I wanted to ask you a question though. Like, is there a moment in time where Matt says, "Hold on, let's just think this through real quick"? These pandas were kidnapped by Venom, and now they're here. I mean, what's to stop Matt from going back to China and saying, "I'm sorry, but Venom killed all of your precious pandas and sold them for meat." And then China puts out a hit on Venom. Like, they would get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matt starts sending the pandas to various zoos.
Selling them to zoos.
zoos. And maybe the rest for exotic meat.
Or just gives them to Alex. Keep these ones alive.
Matt, you've never tasted the sweet tender taste of panda veal.
Let's talk about Andre.
So what happens to him? I mean, he still smells like panda poo.
Right.
But he must, I mean, Scott's there. He's seen T-Hawk. And now does Andre know about M.A.S.K and Matt now?
Yeah, he does.
You know, if secrecy is like paramount here, you know, what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, they're flying the pandas back to China. Matt is flying with Andre and T-Hawk. I just imagine Andre leaning over and say, Matt, I just want you to know I will never tell anyone about the secret of M.A.S.K. And Matt just looks at him and says, I know, Andre. I know. And then unbuckles his seatbelt, does a barrel roll to see Andre screaming, falling into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And then Matt being like, it's too bad that Venom killed you, Andre.
Yeah, Andre, to my knowledge, does not come back in the series. So, yeah, whatever happened to Andre the artist from New
I
York?
don't know. And then what happens to Miles' statue? Like, it's still desecrated.
So, in a way, this might be the first Venom plot that actually succeeded, because Miles got his statue.
So I love that we started with a very low bar for Venom, and they finally surpassed it.
Well, we cut to the more you know. These are getting worse by the day as well. Scott and T-Bob are building a treehouse, and Scott sees a kid down below running with sticks. And Scott tells him, that could be dangerous. And then T-Bob falls out of the treehouse while Scott and the kid kind of shake their heads sadly. The end. What in the world?
I was at such a loss because, like, what's the lesson? Because in theory, the lessons don't run with sticks, but then T-Bob falls because of shitty engineering in the treehouse. So, what do you want me to take away from this?
I mean, the typical thing would be like, then T-Bob would be running with a stick and he would poke himself in his robot eye.
Yeah.
So that's the last time I run with sticks.
Right.
Or some terrible line like that. But I mean, really, don't run with sticks? Did Mom write this episode? Well, the episode ends as badly as it began. So this one is absolutely the worst one that I have seen so far. But we still have our awards to give away. Fly Rax Ragdoll Awards. What do you got?
I mean, we have some typical ones from Venom, but I really felt like Matt dying from being knocked over into a tomato cart.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to kind of, I mean, it's like, look, he'd be dead.
No, I agree, because he's falling head first into a tomato cart that's maybe 2 feet deep.
Maybe.
So he's dead. He's dead. So R.I.P. Matt. We will see you next episode. Father of the Year. What do you got?
I think giving Scott and T-Bob that panda, it's like, not only are they now at Target, they're now holding one of China's pandas.
I like that one. I think taking Scott to the terrorists once again is like continuing a theme for Matt of constantly bringing Scott to danger. But yeah, I would say giving Scott and T-Bob a targeted panda, not a great idea.
Not a great idea. I agree.
Well, let's wrap with the Buddy Hawks Award. What do you got?
I didn't think I had one for this, and then I realized I did. I actually think it's a double award. I think one basically is for Matt Tracker for bringing in a white artist from New York City instead of using local talent in China to design the statue. So basically just blowing that away. And then also for Miles Mayhem for also kidnapping the same said white artist from New York instead of using local talent from Chile to design his likeness. So it's
you know, I'm surprised with the lack of quality overall in this episode from the writer. I'm surprised that there aren't way more Buddy Hawks Award nominees, because there are a lot of bad places this could go. But I think they handled all the Chinese characters. Probably there's one, but very well. I mean, there were no tropes that concerned me. So I think Matt's Western-centric beliefs of local talent of his own is better than Chinese talent. Sure, I'll go with that. Well, this was the absolute worst. Will the next one be any better? It's episode 28 called Blackout. Venom has a new vehicle called Blackout, which is capable of draining power supplies. I hope it's good.
I mean, I think it's better. Let's just say that much. I don't know if you can get much worse at this point in time. I think I truly hope and believe we have hit the nadir of all the episodes where like Venom, maybe this really is the moment Miles looks at himself and says like, all right, what am I doing? I gotta fix something.
Well, we will find out. But for now, this podcast has to transform and head back to HQ. I am Adam Moore.
And I am PJ McNerney.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Mobile Armored Podcast Show is written, produced, and edited by Adam Moore and PJ McNerney.